Tesla is still like so much farther ahead than everything. And I think it really comes down to the user interface and how Tesla's more than just a car. It's like a piece of technology. And I think there's still like a lot of people that view it as a car. So they're like, oh, you know, they're just comparing like the specs side by side. And it's so much more than that.
What's up, everyone? This is Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley, and we have Kim Java here in Atlanta. So obviously we had to make 2 stops when we came to do our interview today with Tosca. It was literally the person that we thought of right after was Kim and T Sportline. So we are at T Sportline today. But Kim, thank you so much for your time today and coming down, to this part. But, you know, one thing, you know, you've been to the Takeover for 2 years in a row. And actually this year was a special year. You actually had your kids come as well. What has been your experience of the Takeover these past 2 years? And even like this year, bringing your family, like how have things changed, gotten good or bad?
Yeah. It was definitely a change. You guys rebranded a little bit, a different name this year going into it. I felt like this year maybe it was more of a focus too with SpaceX and including some more stuff other than just Tesla inside of it. But it was really fun getting to bring my son this year for him to see it and be in that environment. Normally, you know, he just sees us at home making videos. He knows what we do and what I do. But for him to go, and I felt like he maybe had a little more respect for me than normal.
Yeah, well, I thought it was, the session went amazing. I mean, it was really cool to have that family dynamic and just talk about Tesla lifestyle and really being able to kind of showcase you even on a more personal level with your whole family. So thank you so much for coming out and being a huge supporter of the event.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you was, you know, obviously we just got done with our interview with Tosca, and, you know, she talked a lot about just how even the film industry is so focused on, there's just a lot of men in that industry, even in the Tesla community. As you know, you've been one of the people who started on this in the early days of Tesla, and just really your whole channel and everything, and how it's even morphed. But how is it being a woman in the space, and how has that changed over time? Because when I think of, you know, the woman in the Tesla community or in even the EV space, it's like you think of a few people and you're one of the prominent ones.
Well, thank you. It's definitely different because, you know, a lot of times people will say like, oh, you're a woman in a man space or things like that. I definitely still hear people say stuff like that again. And there's times where we get mean comments on our videos that seem very sexist, and I, you know, have to deal with that side of it. But at the same time, it's also nice to empower other women, other girls to get involved in STEAM and in technology and science. And I feel like following Tesla and the cars is really, and the technology behind it, is really cool. And I've learned so much. So I love being able to inspire other people. But I do feel like sometimes I have to, like if we're recording a video, I really need to know exactly what I'm talking about, how to say it. If I make a mistake, I feel like I get picked on a little bit more than other people, for sure. That's something that I noticed. But, you know, I feel like it's harder. You have to work a little bit harder than maybe other people would.
Yeah. Over the years of obviously being in the Tesla space, do you feel like there's been progress? And if there has been, like, are you happy about that progress, or where do you even see things, like where can things get better?
I think there's definitely been progress, for sure. I feel like I've been making videos now for like 8 or 9 years, which is like crazy to think about. And some of the comments that I saw back, you know, when we first got started versus now, there's definitely not as many. Like, I remember in the early days, like someone was like, go back to the kitchen. Like, we would get comments like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I don't feel like we get those as much. Actually, we had a comment the other day, my husband's back there and he's going to laugh, where they were like, usually when he comes on the channel, people have been very positive, but we had one where they were like, go back to weather or something to him, which, you know, he's a meteorologist.
Yeah,
I've been bringing him more and more in the channel. So it's like almost the opposite a little bit now, where I feel like I've been doing it for so long. And a lot of times people are starting to, know my name and associate it with Tesla. So maybe there's a little more respect there. I don't know.
Yep.
It's hard to say that about yourself. So
Yeah. So I think two questions I have, like, how is being a woman in the Tesla space maybe even different than the broader EV space? Is there even differences?
I don't know if there's a big difference. That's a good question. I actually, maybe easier in the Tesla space, I think. The EV space really opens it up to all vehicles and the OEMs.
Yep.
So, and that goes into like the whole, the world kind of, and how the world views women. If you're thinking of it like that versus like the Tesla space is a little bit smaller, more unique. And I feel like it's a different type of person. A lot of times, I mean, it's hard to like, if we're stereotyping people, like we're saying Tesla people, but you could say like, oh, Tesla people have more education or things like that. But I mean, I feel like our community is really supportive of me so far.
Yeah. No, it's been really cool because we started the club 6 years ago. And so it's been, just seeing how you've gone from your channel and how it's morphed. How would you like encourage people that are maybe like women specifically or young girls that are looking to start out in a space and just create content? Like what comes to mind? What would be words of advice that you would give to them?
I think you just have to start. I think a lot of times people, they say, oh, I'd love to do something like that. And, I'm really interested, but then they never do it. And you just have to start somewhere and then be consistent about it and just keep going with it. And keep doing it and then have thick skin, not worry about what other people are saying or what comments are doing. Sometimes actually, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying previously, when I have a video, it first usually goes out to my initial subscribers, which are Tesla owners. And those are really positive comments. But then once a video, technically does well and gets more views, then I start getting the mean comments. And that's kind of the broader audience.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, now I know the video is doing well.
Yeah.
The reach has increased and I'm getting those mean comments. So for me, I'm like, I don't take it personal. I'm like, hey, you're still watching and you're part of it is getting out there. And I feel like I'm helping clear up some of that FUD usually with my videos. And so my reach is increasing with it. So you have to have that tough skin, not let it bother you and just like keep going forward. It's consistency and just doing it, making time for it every week, like set a day, like I'm going to create content, on Saturdays. And that's your content day. Like if you have a full-time job and you just keep doing it.
Yeah. Obviously your channel has morphed in the past year or several years, but you've also gone all in on this, right? Doing this full time, obviously with your husband as well. Like just how has that been? How has that journey been? And also too, even like, I think we had probably had some side conversations about when you were rebranding, how there was kind of course, the hate, especially from, some of the Tesla community, but how has that rebranding been? And then being in the space now, just going all in on it?
Yeah. Initially the channel was called Like Tesla. And then we rebranded it to Kim Java. And it was hard at first because I felt like it was not really super thought out the way we did like the rebranding. I took a break during COVID because I was pregnant and COVID was happening. And so I took like a year off. And then instead of coming back as what people knew me as, I decided to come back and change my name at the same time, which is probably, in hindsight, not smart thing to do. So I felt like it took about a year for people kind of to realize, oh, she's that same girl, like the same person from before. And then kind of start all over in some ways with all that. And then the direction, and people were kind of confused where I was going with that. So I could have gone at it probably a little bit better, like now that I think about it. But this last year, we have gone all in full time with it. And it's been
congrats,
really
by the way.
Thank you so much. So it's been fun because it's like all we think about. We're like started a podcast that I do with my husband every week. And we have other people on there and we put those videos on YouTube as well as, all the podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast from. And that's been really fun to do and just really stay up on all the news and what's going on in this field. And for me, I love it because I'm like, I always know what's going on. Like when I do those, I'm like, I read up for the week on everything. And then we try to do another video a week that's on, whatever's going on in the world. Those are kind of like, it might be a road trip, it might be a car mod, it might be us reviewing, different cars. And that's been really fun to be able to review other EVs and compare them to Tesla.
Yeah. How is stepping into this kind of like all EVs now, how have things kind of like changed? Like, and also too, more of like maybe, how do you feel like the other EVs or competition, like how are they matching up to Tesla?
That's a good question. Tesla is still like so much farther ahead than everything. And I think it really comes down to the user interface and how Tesla's more than just a car. It's like a piece of technology. And I think there's still like a lot of people that view it as a car. So they're like, oh, they're just comparing like the specs side by side. And it's so much more than that, that it almost like ruins you for a lot of other vehicles. And so a lot of times I'll be like, on paper, this vehicle would be great. But when I actually go to drive it and I'm trying to figure out the UI and things like that, I'm missing the Tesla stuff. And so it's hard to, and naturally I'm always like looking back to like, how does this compare to Tesla? But there are a few that I feel like are really good out there that I've really enjoyed. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, well, for this price, this is still, I could see why people might want this. And I talk to people all the time too that are not wanting the Tesla because, 5 people they know own a Model Y. They don't want to get a Model Y.
It's the new Toyota Corolla. They don't want what everyone else has.
They want something different. So I love to be able to review other cars and be like, well, if you don't want this, here's a couple other options that you might like to try. So
yeah, I think I had my first experience driving a Hyundai Ioniq 5. And I do think there is that little bit of like, with a Tesla, you do take 10 steps forward, but not everyone is also at that point. They want to kind of still have that ICE car feel. Like for me, like when I was getting out of it, when I was in Muskegon, like you actually have to press a button to get out. I mean, kind of all the stuff you forget about. And then even when I got out of the car, the handle stuck out all night and the car was on technically all night until I came out and realized you have to like turn it off and then lock it. So it's just, I mean, not everyone is going to want the Tesla experience or see what that is. They want maybe a couple of steps because you get, 300 miles of range with a Hyundai Ioniq. So, but thank you for your time today. Thank you for pioneering, really just helping. It's going to take a village to really help this world to transition to a sustainable future. And there's so much amazing content that comes from your channel and all the stuff you've been doing for the past 8-9 years. Congrats on doing this full time and,
thank you.
And the rebrand.
All right. Well, thank you so much.